Hello, I just want to say thank you and congratulations to all the winners and everyone who's participated in the Pupil Design Awards this year. It's been such a fantastic project, and I feel so honoured to be part of the day today. My name's Mya-Rose Craig. I'm 22 years old, and I am an environmental campaigner and activist, as well as a very passionate birdwatcher. And I have been doing this kind of campaigning since I was 11 or 12 years old, so for over a decade now, which is crazy. And it can all be traced back to the fact that um, I was a child who was very upset, very scared about the state of the world, and very frustrated about the lack of response or activity I was seeing from adults dealing with these issues, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, things like species going extinct. Um, and this all began, like I said, because I really love birds and bird watching. I was really lucky. I had this lovely childhood out in the countryside where I was able to spend lots of time going on walks, looking at birds, things like that. And I think because of that, I was very aware of these issues at a younger age than I might have been otherwise, because I could see them happening before my eyes. I could literally trace back to, 5 years before when a species had been much more common, or when a woodland had existed that had now been chopped down. And so it became something that I was very passionate about, partially for personal reasons, and then the way that that tied in with kind of a growing awareness, both personally and in the media, about all of these issues. And so at the beginning, I wasn't trying to be like a change maker or a campaigner. I didn't really know what campaigning even meant particularly. I think, like activist, that sort of felt like a vague mystery word. And instead, I actually, as someone with quite a niche, slightly nerdy hobby, I wanted to um, engage with other kids online who I knew were also talking about these things, a lot of whom I'd already met in real life. And so, because it was 2013, the thing that we did was blogging. So I made a blog called Bird Girl, which obviously has stuck. More people know me by that than my real name these days. But I set up this blog, Bird Girl, and I started connecting with these other people who also cared deeply about the state of the world. And I was originally just writing about, say, the birds that I saw on the weekend and things like that. But very quickly, it became an outlet for, like I said, a lot of my frustrations about lots of the issues going on in the world. And so I started writing about environmental issues, basically. And it wasn't with any particular expectation of anyone reading it, but just to my surprise, people did, and they seemed really interested in what I had to say, which I think, as a relatively young girl, slash eventually young teenager, that felt like such a big deal to me, because I feel like at that age you're constantly being told that your voice doesn't matter and your opinion doesn't matter. And it felt very empowering. And so I think it was that moment, that luck of sort of gaining a platform, that originally taught me that my views did matter and my voice did matter, and that potentially I could at least try to be the change that I wanted to see in the world. And so that's when I kind of started campaigning, and that meant various things for different issues. One that I spent a lot of time on at the time was my family's, well, half my family's from Bangladesh, and there's a bird called the spoon-billed sandpiper. There are about 200 species left in the world at the time. It was critically endangered. And because I was lucky enough to have this platform, I was kind of doing various bits on Bangladeshi TV to try and kind of raise awareness. But I was also writing and posting on social media, and I suppose trying to educate people about this of many issues. But I think that to kind of say environmental issues is such a broad topic, and I cared about everything at the time, and I still do, of course. But I think when you're hyper aware of all the many ways that the world is struggling, it's very overwhelming. And I know so many young people who have tried their best to make the world a better place, and because they've been trying to single-handedly save the world, they've just completely burnt themselves out. And so I think it's so important to kind of explore in terms of your and your passions, to kind of find the area that feels right for you and instead dedicate yourself towards that. And for me, I came across that when I was 13, 14, um, as someone who isn't white, kind of growing up in environmental spaces. I had always been very aware that it is a space that is very much lacking diversity. And when I was about 13, I started running nature camps that were all about bringing people from kind of all walks of life, but especially kids from Black and Asian minority ethnic backgrounds, out into nature and showing them that that was a space that they wanted to get engaged with, that they should want to spend time in, which was great. And it was also all about, I suppose, teaching them about environmental issues and why they should care about those things. And at the time, strangely, more than any kind of big organizations in the nature sector, I was the one making strides forward. And they all wanted to hear from me, which I think, again, kind of taught me that a lot of people or a lot of organizations that I'd looked up to be absolute experts um, were not quite as on it as I maybe thought, which once again kind of validated to me that my thoughts and feelings and ideas mattered as well. And all of this led to me setting up my charity, Black to Nature, when I was 14, which has continued to kind of run these very grassroots camps. We've worked with hundreds of children over the last few years and has also been pushing for change in various sectors. And I do want to say that all of that sounds much more complicated than it actually was. And I think, again, it's one of those things where when you start exploring what these kind of big words, big concepts actually mean, it's much more doable than you would first maybe assume. And since then, since this all began, I've been very lucky. I've been able to use my platform to kind of enter very journalistic spaces, which is something I've always been very interested. So kind of writing articles, doing radio, doing TV, which has been really exciting. I also wrote a few books a couple years ago, and it's been incredibly exciting. But I think it's also been so satisfying to look back over the past decade and to see the change that I have created, as well as all of the amazing people that I've met along the way who are also pushing for change. And I think that's the thing that has made me feel more hopeful about the future than anything else. And so I suppose if there was anything I could go back and tell myself as a young person, it would be to kind of carry on pushing and shouting, and that even if I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, I really should try. Um, because I think that is the biggest lesson I've learned along this whole journey is even when people don't want to listen, even when people weren't very interested in what I had to say, I had to carry on pushing. And I think for young people to learn agency and to gain passion is so important. And I am aware that as a young person, it feels impossible to make change, feel heard, or even in a more personal level, kind of setting yourself on the path forward towards what you want. And I think there are many skills that feel very daunting, such as kind of learning, mobilization, collaboration, kind of engagement with topics that feel very difficult. And they're all very important skills. And going forward, I'm sure you'll hear more about it. But I've heard that the RSA has some very exciting ideas. And I'm very excited to see what projects the future holds. But thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for your participation today.